Right, year 10, you're going to be looking at factors, multiples, and in particular highest common factors and lowest common multiples today. Just run through this by way of a start for yourself, so take down your questions, halt the presentation, pause the presentation and go through your answers. If you can do these questions, it's really going to help you with the rest of the presentation, the rest of the task. So have a go at this for a starter. When you come back, I'll just go through quickly the solutions. Okay, so year 10, let's have some solutions to this. What are the factors of 12? The factors of 12, numbers that go into 12 whole. So, ones that people forget. 1 is a factor of 12, 12 is a factor of 12. What else divides into 12 exactly? 2, oh, that's a bit of a dodgy 2, let's get rid of that. 2, 3, 4, 6, all factors of 12, all numbers that divide into 12 exactly. What about the factors of 36? Very similar. 1 and 36, 2, which also means that 18 is a factor. Pair up, 2 times 18 equals 36, so 2 is a factor of 36, 18 is a factor of 36, 3 is a factor of 36, 12 is a factor of 36, 4, 9, not forgetting an important one, 6. 6 times 6 is 36, 6 squared. So what is the highest common factor of 12 and 36? What is the highest factor that goes into both of those numbers? Look at the factors. What's the largest value that divides both into 12 and 36? And it is in fact 12. It's the largest number that goes into 36 and it goes into 12. What are the multiples of 6? The multiples means times table. So the multiples of 6, 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, talked about it earlier, 36. Let's do some multiples of 9, so 9, 18, 27, 36. Oh, we've got those 36 there, haven't we? But that's not the lowest common multiple. The lowest number that appears in both times tables is actually 18. So the lowest common multiple is actually going to be 18. The lowest number that appears in both times table. 6 times table and the 9 times table. Okay, that's a starter. A little bit of revision here. What is a prime number? You need to know this and you need to understand this. Any number that's only got 2 factors, so 1 and itself. So an example of a prime number. 2. Ooh. 2. What's special about 2 as a prime number? It's the only even prime number. Another prime number. 3. Another prime number. 5. 7. Not 9. 3 goes into 9. 11. 13. 17. 19. Which for the most part of GCSE are most of the prime numbers that you would need to deal with. Important thing to remember, 1 is not a prime number. As far as you're concerned, 1 is not a prime number. Okay? Prime number, any number that can only be divided by 1 and itself. Okay, what is a multiple? We've already talked about this. It's anything that's in the times table. So multiples of 7 would be 7, 14, 21, 28, etc. What is a factor? So if you had 100, what is a factor of 100? It's any number that divides into 100, so 1 and 100, 50, 25, 20, 4, 5. Any number that goes into it is a factor, okay? Divides exactly into a number. So you need to know those. What is a multiple? What is a factor? And then we're going to talk about highest common factor and lowest common multiple. Right, so you should have done this before, it should be a revision for you. I'm going to take those two numbers, 60 and 36, and I'm going to say, right, write them as a product of their prime factors. So, 60, what's two factors of 60? 2 and 30. 2 is a prime number, can't be broken down anymore. 30. Can't be broken down any further. 3 times 5 is 15, 15 times 2 is 30, 30 times 2 is 60. Okay? Once we get to a prime number, we can't break the number down anymore. Okay? That is a prime factor of 60. So the prime factors of 60, 2, 2, 3, and 5. If you multiply those numbers together, they would come back to 60. What's an alternative way of writing this? And you should have seen this before. 2 times 2 is 2 squared, times 3 times 5. Just an alternative way of writing. 36. 2. 18. 2, 9, 3, and 3. Broken it down as far as we can into prime numbers. So we've got 2 times 2 times 3 times 3. Could be written as, could be written as 2 squared times 3 squared. 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 3 is 12, 12 times 3 takes us back to our 36. Those are our prime factors. Two different ways of writing them, but those are our prime factors. We've broken those numbers down into their prime factors. How does that help us with LCM and highest common factor? Right, so for 60, those are our prime factors. For 36, right, so highest common factor is the highest number that divides into both 60 and 36. And the way you find that is you look at these two lists and you say what numbers appear in both of those lists. So what numbers have we got in both of those lists? There's a 2 squared there and there's a 2 squared there. So 2 squared appears in both lists. There's a 5 in this, but there isn't a 5 in there, so it doesn't appear in both lists. So 5, no good. There's 1 3 here, and there's 3 squared over here, so 1 3 appears in both the lists. What is 2 squared? It's 4. 4 times 3 is 12. Highest common factor of 60 and 36, the highest number that goes into both of those numbers is 12. 12 goes into 65 times, 12 goes into 36 3 times. Yeah, that makes sense. Lowest common multiple, the lowest number that appears in both 60 times table and 36 times table, it's got to be all numbers that appear in the two lists, their highest value. So there's 2's appear in both of the lists. What's the highest value of the 2 that appears in both lists? It's 2 squared. 3's appear in both lists. The highest value is 3 squared. Okay? 2's appear in both lists, 2 squared. Lowest common multiple this time. Numbers that appear in both lists, right, or they've got to appear in this list, don't have to appear in both lists. Highest value. 2 appears in both lists, the highest value is 2 squared. 3 appear in both lists, the highest value is 3 squared. 5 appears only in one list, but it's still got to form part of our lowest common multiple. So, 2 squared times 3 squared, well, we know that makes 36, times 5. So our lowest common multiple is actually going to be 180. 2 squared times 3 squared times 5 gives us 180. That's one way of doing it. Look at the 2 lists. Numbers that appear in both lists, and they must appear in both lists, form our highest common factor. Numbers that appear in either of the lists to their highest value gives us our lowest common multiple. Okay? Should be revision for most of you, hopefully. So what have we looked at so far? We've looked at prime numbers, we've looked at factors, we've looked at multiples, we've looked at highest common factor, we've looked at lowest common multiple. Okay. Write their number as a product of its prime factors so that we can work out our highest common factor and lowest common multiple. We've done one example with 60 and 84. 60 and 36. Let's do 84 and 100. I'll show you a slightly different way of approaching it, an alternative way of solving this for yourselves. So, let's have a look at 84. So 2 and 42. Okay. 2 and 21. 3 and 7. Uh, 100. 2 and 50. 2 and 25. 5 and 5. Okay? So our prime factors for 100 are going to be 2 times 2 times 5 times 5. Can be written as 2 squared times 5 squared. And for 84, 2 times 2 times 3 times 7, 2 squared times 3 times 7. Okay? So, let's have a little look at that. What numbers appear in both of those lists? Just 2 squared. So the highest common factor, numbers that appear in both of the lists, is 2 squared. So that's 4. Lowest common multiple, numbers that appear in either of the lists in their highest form. So 2's appear, so that's 2 squared. 3's appear, just a 3. 7 appears, just a 7. 5 appears, it's 5 squared. Okay? 2 squared is 4. 5 squared is 25. 4 times 25 is 100. 3 times 7 is 21. So actually 2100 for our lowest common multiple. That's one way of doing it. Look at the two prime factor decomposition, it's called. Yeah, we've broken the numbers down, we've decomposed the numbers into their prime factors, picked out the numbers that appear in both lists to get their highest common factor, picked out the numbers that are in either list in their highest format to get our lowest common multiple. There's a different way of approaching it. Look at those two lists of the prime factors, what appears in both lists. Draw myself a Venn diagram here, two circles, and they overlap. What appears in both lists, the 2 squared, 2 and a 2, appears in both lists. What appears in the 84 list other than that, 7 and a 3. What appears in the 100 list, 5 and a 5, 5 squared. To get your highest common factor, what appears in the overlap area, 2 times 2, 2 squared, highest common factor. All the numbers that appear all together, multiply them together, so 2 squared, 5 squared, 7 and 3 gives you your lowest common multiple. Okay, so that's another way of looking at that problem. Highest common factor and lowest common multiple. So one more example on the board for you. We'll do 45 and 108 there. So start off, do our prime factor decomposition. 5, 9, 3, and 3. So 3 times 3 times 5, or 3 squared times 5. Let's get rid of that. I don't really want that up there, do I? Okay, so that's 45. 3 times 3 times 5, 3 squared times 5. Let's try 108. 108, 2, 54, 2, 27, 3, 9, 3, and 3. So decomposing them, 2 times 2 times 3 times 3 times 3, otherwise as 2 squared times 3 cubed. Okay. What number appears in both of the lists? We've got 3 squared there and we've got 3 squared there, so highest common factor is going to be 3 squared. So that's 9, that's our highest common factor, 45 and 108. Yeah, that sounds reasonable. What about lowest common multiple? It's numbers that appear in both of the lists, or either of the lists, in their highest format. So we've got 2 squared times 3 cubed. So we've got 2's appearing. Highest format is 2 squared, we've got 3's appearing, highest version is 3 cubed, and we've got 5. So, what's that? It's going to be 2 squared is 4 times 27 times 5. 4 lots of 27 is 108. 108 times 5, 540 is our lowest common multiple. So that's another example. And you could have done that by doing your Venn diagram. Okay. Highest common factor, numbers that appear in both of the lists. Lowest common multiple, numbers that appear in either of the lists, but in their highest format. And we can use our Venn diagram if we wanted to. Venn diagram, if we wanted to use our Venn diagram, what number is in both of the lists? 3 squared, a 3 and a 3. The list for 108 also has another 3 and a 2 and a 2. The list for 45 just has a 5. So, highest common factor, 3 times 3, 9. Lowest common multiple has got to be 2 squared times 3 cubed times 5, which came out as 540. Why does that come out here? Okay, hopefully that's made sense to you. If you need to pause the presentation to go through various parts of it, please do that. But hopefully that makes sense to you. I'm not going to do any more examples for you today. So we've gone through what multiples are, what factors are, we've gone through what prime numbers are, and we've looked at prime factor decomposition, so taking a number, breaking it down into its prime factors, and then using that to work out highest common factors and lowest common multiples. Hopefully that's been of use to you. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much.